If you're going to market yourself as an AI note taker and an AI capable device that is just as good when you launch as other e-ink tablets, after a year, you should have closed that gap substantially, and they haven't. And I think that's where my disappointment is. Hey, everybody, going live tonight. I hope everyone's doing well out there. Welcome back to another edition of Change Chat. Just talking tonight. It's November 14th. It's late at night here in Northwest Indiana, and wanted to catch up on a few things. A lot of news has dropped here recently, and my Discord's been pretty much hopping, and there's also been a lot of talk on Reddit. Big updates from Supernote. They dropped out of their beta and they issued the full release on their new software updates. WeWoods also issued a new update on devices. Unfortunately, I thought I was receiving the AI Note, but they sent me the iFlyTech AI Note Air, and I will not be reviewing that device. I'll be just sending it back. I've already been in contact with the company. So a lot of things going on, and was really curious to get your all's take, especially on the two releases and drops regarding the Supernote platform and the WeWoods platform. Because I know that those are two tablets that get compared a lot, especially WeWoods always is trying to take on that mantle of the best screen and the thinnest device, which now the AI Note 2 seems like it might take that mantle because of the Guinness Book it seems to be touting when it comes to being the thinnest tablet on the market. Again, other than David at Tablet Tech and GraphX Tech, I haven't seen any reviews that weren't paid ads yet, but there may be some coming. I'm hoping. I know Jeff Moss has one in the works. But I'd be curious. Anybody out there, jump into the chat, say hello. Let's have a conversation about what's going on. It looks like Aaron is in the house. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. The screen is nice, you say, and are you talking about on the AI Note? It's the same screen that's, as far as I know, it's the same screen that's on both the WeWoods and the Manta. So it's not a different screen. Now, they may have done some different things that Jay has talked about with the voltage, but I don't think that they've done much more than that. As far as the screen, it's still the Carta 1300 with the 300 PPI black and white. So I think that, yeah, it's a nice screen because that's the best screen out there right now. I don't think there's anything else like it. Yeah, the WeWood screen is fine. It is a good screen, but it's to me no better than the Manta because I like the Feel Right too. So I'm willing to give up that just slight bit of brightness for that because to me I can't tell about it that much. I do know it's there. I mean, if you put the two devices side by side, you're going to see that the WeWoods is a little bit lighter, but what you gain in having that Feel Right to film and then just the overall productivity of the device, I'm willing to make that trade-off. And I know some people aren't, and I get it. And I think a lot of that comes down to personal preference. But to me, that's what separates the writing experience on a Supernote from the other devices. And I even know that Books is coming out with more tablets with screen surfaces on them to kind of mimic or to do that differently. Yeah, why is their screens brighter? Well, I think part of it is the Feel Right too. That does add just a little bit of difference to it. And then Jay has mentioned that there's something you can do to tweak the voltage on e-ink screens to make them brighter. It's something to do with the way it moves the pixels and how far away they are from the surface. And I am not an expert there. I'll leave it to the people who are. But again, I think that the Supernote is plenty bright enough for what I do. And I don't see that as an issue, at least to me, to the naked eye. I see it as something that I really enjoy the way that works. I'm curious, Aaron, you and I talked earlier today really briefly about whether or not the WeWoods update was a substantial update. On paper, it didn't look like it to me, but that could just be I'm not using that device anymore, so I'm not as embedded in that ecosystem. But the Supernote update that dropped today was huge. It was stuff I was already using in beta, so I knew it was coming and I had been using that. But it just showed again them doubling down on consistency and longevity of their devices. And I think that's a really important thing to consider when it comes to these devices. They brought InkFlow, which is being able to turn your Supernote into a Wacom tablet on your PC. They brought that in, and now you can do that on the A5X. That was something that was missing. So functionally at this point, you can do everything on the A5X and the A6X that you can do on the Manta or the Nomad with their native apps. Now, you don't get that same level of side loading because it's an older version of Android. Amazon has ended support for that version of Android for the Kindle app. So you do lose the Kindle app on the A5X and the A6X. But otherwise, they're the same device as far as from a function standpoint. Older screen, lower resolution, not modular, but mine is approaching, I mean, it's over 4.5 years old, and the device model itself is approaching 5 years old, and they're still chugging along. I mean, mine has good battery life. Occasionally, I'll pull it out and just write on it because I like it. I put the Feel Right 2 protector on it as well. But what are some of your thoughts? I mean, there were a lot of releases today. They not only dropped on the Supernote side the release for the devices themselves, but also for all of the partner apps. So the iOS, the Android, and the Windows and Mac partner apps also dropped. And I think that's a big deal, the fact that they're doubling down on what makes them unique and what makes them stand out as a platform. Aaron, I believe, let me get this to show here. I believe the Remarkable 2 is slightly older than the Supernote or around the same age. So it's still in that 5-year-old category, that 5 to 6 years old. And quite frankly, it's like I said earlier, I think organizationally, I don't think WeWoods competes with Remarkable because Remarkable allows folders within folders and it allows for the app experience and syncing. So even if you're looking at the Remarkable 2, it holds up. Yes, you have to pay the Connect subscription, but you still have access to a sync app, to a cloud service. And that's something that I think if WeWoods wants to be competitive long term in this market with these brands, it really needs to think about how it develops its organizational tools and not just release a new device without considering how that could fit with everything else. I think that's why it's, I'm not going to say they're struggling because I have no idea. I mean, these are all private companies. So there's no way to know, pound for pound how they're selling. But I think you've seen tremendous growth in books devices. You've seen growth in Supernote. You've seen growth in Remarkable, which is a huge company. And I don't know where ViWoods is in that or where WeWoods is in that. Alex says, what a treat tonight. First Media had his podcast and now Ed. Yeah, Aaron, I'm sorry I missed your podcast again. We were watching Severance, and if you all haven't seen Severance, we're into the second season, so we're not all the way through it yet. But that is one crazy show. A lot of different issues that it raises. Melissa and I are watching that, trying to finish it up and see where we're at on that. I can recommend it as something you do get enthralled in. And if you're into medical shows, The Pit. I watched that on my travel to and from Prague and managed to finish the entire season. And that is an amazing show. Amazing from start to finish. So it is just really good. And Aaron says, I think you're making valid points about WeWoods because they are such a new company. I do believe within the next few years the device will improve. Yeah, but by then, Aaron, they'll need a new device. I think that, yeah, Again, I have a real trouble, and I think the video I saw earlier said you never, it goes back to the MKBHD thing and the thing I say, and that all of us seem to say you never buy based on a promise, and that's what you're buying based on there, and that's where I think they're struggling. The newness argument has worn off at this point. They're over a year old. I think that they launched with a very half-baked software experience. And I remember when they launched and they sent Voya a review unit, which they've never sent him an update for. And I think that that's going to be really interesting if they ever get one in his hands. But it's improved, there's no doubt. But selling it at that price point that they were selling it at a year ago, and it wasn't as good of an experience as any other device out there. I mean, I quit reviewing it because not a bad device, but doesn't justify the cost, doesn't do what the others do, and it's just not comparable, in my opinion. And I think that's, the best we can do as reviewers or people who use these devices is just give our honest opinion. And that's why I couldn't recommend it. Alex said, can't wait to see your full review on the TCL phone. Yeah, Alex, that's hard. And I'll say it's hard because I can't get it to work as a phone. It doesn't work on the Verizon network, and it doesn't work on Xfinity, which is the Verizon network for me. So I don't know why it doesn't. I've reached out to the company. I'm trying to see if I can figure out a way to do that. Worst case scenario, I'll review it as a phone without reviewing the phone, because I'm pretty sure the phone features are going to be just fine. But I'll review it from a writing standpoint, from an overall functionality standpoint on my Wi-Fi network, all of that kind of stuff. How is it to take notes? How is it to view apps? How does it do all of that? And then I will go from there and see whether or not I can ever get it connected as a phone, because that's what I'd like to do, is test out the battery life, test out all the features in that way to really give it a full rounded evaluation. And then Aaron says, so you expect them to catch up with Supernote and Remarkable within a year? Quite frankly, yes, I did. Aaron, I'm sorry. If you're going to market yourself as an AI note taker and an AI capable device that is just as good when you launch as other e-ink tablets, after a year, you should have closed that gap substantially, and they haven't. And I think that's where my disappointment is. They launched saying they were the best and that they were awesome, and their marketing was aggressive, and it still is very aggressive. And they were saying that they were worth more than the Note Max. Again, I know that all of you who know me know that I've got that little bit of a bias in that they said this was an $800 device for the AI paper, and they still say it. Every communication I get says that it should be MSRP at $799, and that's crazy. And I just don't understand why they keep saying that. And I don't believe it's worth $549 when it's on sale for the $499. If you're just going to use it for a note-taking replacement, yeah, but not if you really want to be organized, because of the way they separate out and segment those meeting versus paper notes and the way their pickings work and some of the other things. The daily is awesome. The rest of it, I just don't know. And Sensei says, do you think Supernote will lower their price point? I don't know, especially now that they've moved to Japan for their manufacturing. I'm kind of hoping they'll be able to do that, or at least you'll see some of a cost lowering because of the difference in tariffs, because that's the biggest thing right now is import duties and tariffs that's killing the Supernote platform for their devices, because they're not unreasonably priced. If you bundle in everything you need, they're on paper for the cost of the device and the full package, not out of line. And considering what you get, I think they're well worth the money. When you add in modularity, when you add up consistency of updates, and when you add the fact you never have to buy a new nib, you never have to replace the screen because it's self-healing because of all of those different features, but just the powerhouse software that it is. it gains value all the time by what they're doing with it. So I do hope they'll be able to either bring it down or at least keep it stable and bypass some of these tariff restrictions and some of these other import duties, maybe get a different supply chain going to Europe so that those folks aren't having all of these issues. But that's a great question. And let's see here. Alex said, "What's your take on the Xfinity phone service? I've been with Comcast for over 15 years. They're always ask me. I believe it's Verizon." Yeah, that's what we use, Alex, and quite frankly, I love it. It reduced our phone bill tremendously because any other carrier, pretty much, you're going to pay a line charge. If you have Xfinity or Comcast internet, you don't pay the line charge. All you pay for is your data. So if you just get the phone and just use the data it comes with, which is very minimal, you almost have to get a data plan. But even then, unlimited data is $30 a month, and if you share it or pool it, it can go down to $20 a month over time. So, and it's reliable because it runs off of Verizon. So I've really not had any complaints with their service, except for the fact that sometimes you can't get compatibility. But if you're just using one of the major brand cell phone manufacturers, that's not going to be an issue. Samsung, iPhone, Motorola, most of your major carriers are going to be on there and they work just fine. And even bringing your own device from one of those major carriers works really well. I can't brag on it enough because it saved us, well over $100 a month when we switched initially. It's really, really good. But I am curious for the rest of you, what do you think about this? Do you think I'm way off base when it comes to I mean, I've always been bullish on the Supernote platform, primarily because it's never let me down on a promise of what it delivers because I expect it to do certain things and it does those things. And I think as long as it continues to do those things, everything else it does is a value add. So I've never had it not do something it promised to do when I bought it. Everything else has been an enhancement. So I do want to pop up really quick, see if I can get this to share. And I'm going to show you really quickly the new release for the Nomad for those who may not have seen it. So you should be able to see that now. Let's see if I can put myself, there we go. And let me know if that's coming through okay. It looks good on my end. Let me go down here. And so this is the new one, and it's been in beta for a while, a lot of feedback that they've gotten, and they just keep making improvements. So the biggest one is going to be this private cloud. And the private cloud is this idea that you can use WebDAV and server link to basically create your own self-hosted server. And you can connect this to a NAS or some other local network device. And I think that's going to be a pretty big deal for people who are concerned with data privacy and security and don't want to use the Supernote cloud and the Supernote app. I will be curious. And as a matter of fact, I think it is coming to where you'll be able to still use the Supernote partner app on your own cloud. And that I think is going to be huge in and of itself to be able to do that. Now, there have been complaints today on Reddit watching these threads about that it's some of the documentation isn't quite there yet. So they haven't rolled out the documentation that a lot of people are wanting, but it works really well for those who have gotten it working. And it does take some tech expertise, which I don't have. So if I ever do this, I'm going to be phoning a friend and calling in Jay and saying, how can I do this thing? Also, in the notes, it supports using the stroke erase and region erase, and then changed the text saving method from converting to preserving the original encoding format. So those don't sound like huge things, but they really are quality of life improvements. And then for the optimized, just a ton of different things. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but the fact that you can now move your notes to the SD card. And when you move to the SD card, you're going to have those links are still going to be sustained and be able to link back to a note on your main hard drive for the device. That is huge. And then they did some different optimizations around notes. A little bit of chat here. So let's see. Sensei says, curious if Supernote will release a color screen ink device, which will lower cost of the current lineup. I don't want them to. And Aaron says, I think Supernote needs to drop a color tablet. I'm not sure if the updates are enough to retain users. See, I disagree. Two things. One, I think there's no reason for them to drop a color tablet. I don't think that they see it as what their devices are all about. I'm not saying they won't, but I don't think they're seeing that. And I don't hear the same people saying that should drop a color tablet and should do a color tablet. And so I mean, there are devices that are strictly in that black and white category, and they're very good at that. And I think that that's where Supernote can stay in their lane and really make a difference. I do think they need to come out with an A4 or a larger size device. And I think that would really bode well for them because they could make a killing with their app. The way it is just amping up and ratcheting up functionality, it's going to catch Remarkable very soon. I think the next thing, if I was a betting man, that I would say is they're going to allow you to start not just being able to edit text and notes inside the digest, but across notes in any text field. I think that's coming. I really do. And once they do that, once you can actually, because you can already start a Word document natively on the device and edit it in on your computer by just double clicking and opening it in Word. But once you get to the point where you can edit those text fields that are in your notes through the partner app, I think it's going to be a game changing piece of software. And I think it's going to really give Remarkable a run for its money because right now it does that on its app. And that's a huge value add for it. And then Aaron says, let's see. Sensei says if Supernote is available at Best Buy, I would buy one today. Yeah, I mean, their supply chain is hard because they haven't been able. I don't know I don't know why. I don't know why you can buy it on shop.com. You can buy it from them. You can buy it from their authorized resellers, but they're not in the retail stores. And I think that's a miss. I really wish they could get into Amazon. I wish they could get into Best Buy because they come with a full 2-year warranty. Their customer service is top notch. They really are a great company to work with and to have products with. Aaron says, I do like the SD card usage update. Yeah, the SD card is a huge game changer. And a longtime friend of the channel, Carl Mumford, has been wanting this for a long time. And I think they're working on getting it to where you can actually link to the SD card. I mean, I'm not there yet because until they can back up the SD card, I think that causes some issues. Right now, you can easily link from the SD card to your main storage. And then if you move it off of your main storage onto the SD card, it retains the links and will link back. So it's really cool. And it'll link something to that SD card if it's already embedded. There's just one missing piece, which is being able to select the SD card and a note on it to link to. So it either has to be existing or you have to link back to the main storage. But the fact, and I kid you not, folks, let me go ahead and stop sharing and get big again here. The fact that you have all of that linking and interlinking within the partner app on your PC and your mobile phone is my biggest selling point for this device. If you're looking at productivity, the fact that whether or not I'm on my phone or on my computer or on the device, and I click a link that's in one of those notes and it takes me to that document or to that place because all of the files sync locally. That is huge. It's massive. And let's see, Sensei says, I'm also thinking the black and white tablet should work better writing device. I don't think I use color much. Yeah, I mean, well, and on the Paper Pro Move, the biggest criticism is on the Paper Pro at all, any of the remarkable color devices, the flashing is the constant criticism I hear. I hear it's less so on the smaller device. I don't think it's as prominent from what I've heard, but it's definitely still there. And it really depends on your use case and whether you use color. And Aaron, I loved your video. I haven't got around to commenting on everybody's videos yet, still working through it. But I love when you said you use pink highlights. And I know a lot of people who do. I'm pretty much a yellow highlight guy. So the black and white grayscale on a PDF, when it comes off of my Supernote, it's in yellow and I'm good. So I don't have that issue, but I know a lot of people, including you, my friend, and others who use multiple colored highlights to mean multiple things. And I was kind of surprised Supernote rolled that out for a little while and then pulled it back. So they rolled it out in a beta to be able to have multiple colored highlights when you exported, but then they pulled it back like right away and they went back to the yellow highlight. I think that was a little bit of a miss on their part. Sorry, I had to drink a little bit of iced coffee there. But I think that was a miss on their part. Not for me. For me, I don't care. I don't need it. But for the people who do, I think they're really good about listening to their user base. And I was kind of hoping they would have during that. Alex says, I bought both the Manta and the Note Max, but I ended up returning the Manta. The Note Max meets my expectations. The return was super easy and fast. Yeah, I mean, Supernote is pretty good about, if you're not going to use our devices and you don't want to be in our ecosystem, we'll take care of you. And if you do, we'll take care of you as well. And they really support you. And so I think it is what it is. And the Note Max, I'm using that a lot for grading and when I want to be in a large PDF without having to reformat and reflow it and do different things. But if I had to pick tomorrow and jump down and grade and everything on one device, it would still be the Manta. I can turn it into landscape and it gives you that nice 2-page view that you can go between and shows you where you were. And I can write in the margins. I get that full size and it makes it just really nice when you export that. And you can pick your blue pen and all of your exports are in blue. You can add PDF comments into it. It does all of what I need. And I would say it probably does 85 to 90% of what Books does in the Neo Reader. Doesn't do all of it. Doesn't have a dictionary, which I think is one of its Achilles heels. But from a PDF perspective, being able to embed comments, being able to select and do the digest entries, all those other components from a research perspective. Aaron says, Note Max might be the best e-ink tablet out there. For some people, yes. And he says, I just don't need a 13-inch tablet. I would say the Note Max, if you need a 13-inch tablet, hands down best one out there. I don't want the color version. And then I think the other ones are just too old. The Fujitsu's, the Tab X from Books. And I just don't know that I would need the color. And I don't like that the color devices are not Wacom EMR or not EMR. It doesn't even have to be Wacom. Do something with EMR. I think that would be huge. Yeah, and Alex says it's a huge tablet. It is. And really, the main use case I have found for it has been grading papers. I mean, really, that's where it shines. It's where it's really good. The problem with it that I run into more than anything else is I have to turn off all of my touch gestures because the palm rejection on Books is just a hot mess. It's not good on any of their tablets. I've not found, and it's excessively bad on the Note Max because of the size of that canvas. So if I'm writing at the very top and I'm coming down, my palm's hitting. And so if I'm not having that rejection, it's going to cause me all kinds of problems, accidental page turns, accidental presses, and it's just not a good experience, which is why I say if Supernote comes out with this A4 size tablet. And it's just going to be, if they keep the same level of palm rejection they have and the way their gestures work and having to use two fingers instead of just one to page turn, all of that is going to make it the best tablet. And quite frankly, worth a little bit extra because it has those really good intuitive features, at least for me. And again, that's not going to be for everybody. But I kid you not, I think if I had a Manta and an A4 size Supernote, those would be my daily drivers. I mean, the Manta basically is now. I'm using all of these other devices and testing them, and I use the Note Max for my grading. But other than that, I have to admit, I'm really enjoying the Note Air 5C. For those of you who think I've forgotten about my Random Thoughts newsletter on Patreon, I'm putting the finishing touches on a new edition of that should be out this weekend. I'm hoping to be able to write a blog article this weekend, and I'm going to get that out. But I've been using the Note Air 5C to write that Random Thoughts article in Word on the Note Air 5C with the keyboard case. And the keyboard case, I'm getting more accustomed to it because of just the size is the hardest part for me because I have these, you know, chubby fingers. It's not the easiest thing for me to use, but I've gotten kind of used to the flow and how it works, what the compromises are. Got one little buggy thing to where you have to turn on the caps lock to turn off the caps lock. So if the light's on, the caps lock is actually off. And if the light's off, the caps lock is on. So I've already sent Books an email and some feedback on that. But that's really the only downside to that tablet because you're to that keyboard case. It fits well, it seats well, it holds the pen well with that flap. It's the only good use I've seen of that flap. And you can charge, pass through the charge through the case, and it's really responsive, both in Word and in the Book's text notes. And that will be my next full review device is going to be the Note Air 4C, because that is one of those devices that was voted by you all that you wanted to see the most. So that'll be coming soon. And I also have been talking to Trey, and we look like we might be in the works for us to do either a live stream or a recorded podcast. I'll have to see how that goes on the Note Air 4C and his experience with that, and then me with the Note Air 5C and have that conversation. I know that he's not using it primarily for his work, but he has been using it for personal uses with gaming and some other things he does. And he's been kind of putting it through some paces, and he's going to look at it from the engineer's perspective. But he still daily drives the Nomad, uses it all the time. And even when I let him try out the Books device, he said, I'm probably not going to use this at work a lot because it's just everything is on the Nomad. And he loves the Supernote. So no, I guess like father, like son in that case. All right, everybody. Sorry to cut it short, but I'm going to have to run. But I will talk to you all soon. You have a good bye now.